Welcome to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the place where you can learn how to create a dental practice and a business life that you love. Listen in with Dr. David Moffet as he interviews successful entrepreneurs and successful business people and successful dentists as they share their business successes, their stories, and their breakthrough ideas, sharing pearls of wisdom that you can take back to your practice and implement immediately so that you can have that great practice with more patients, higher profits, and less stress. This is the podcast where great dental practices meet with successful business processes. Thanks for tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the podcast where thought leaders, industry experts, and thriving practice owners reveal their very best tips, tools, and strategies that will help you grow your dental practice faster. Now, here's your host, Dr. David Moffet.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. David Moffet. I'm in Burrawang in New South Wales in Australia, as you all know, and it is just coming up very shortly to 11 o'clock Wednesday morning. My guest today is someone very famous in the tech side of dentistry, and it's Lorne Lavine, Dr. Lorne Lavine, and he is in the LA area of California, where, Lorne, it's coming up to 4 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. Lorne, welcome to the Ultimate Dental Podcast. Good to have you on the program.
Thank you, David. Pleasure to be here, and nice to be talking to you tomorrow when it's still today for me. So I'm looking forward to being here and hopefully talking about some fun things.
Well, the only time that that's ever really been handy for me, Lorne, was when that Mayan calendar was predicting the end of the world. I told all my friends in the US when I was speaking, I said, just give me a call before it's due to crash. And if I answer the phone, then it hasn't crashed in our world because we're a day ahead. So that was the advantage. But even that's more than 10 years ago now. That's ancient history. Lorne, you've had an interesting career because you've transitioned from being a wet-fingered dentist, not by choice, but by circumstance, to becoming the tech guru when it comes to what the tech world is doing for dentists and how dentists can maximize their involvement with tech without it burning a hole in their back pocket as well. So tell us your story, because a lot of people probably don't even realize that that is your story, that you were a dentist, you were from Canada, and thanks to California circumstances, your plans of being a dentist in California were put on hold. So tell us that story.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I, as you just mentioned, I grew up in Canada. My family owned the largest electronic distributorship in Canada. So I grew up with technology. But for various reasons, I did not want to go into the family business. I really wanted to be in the healthcare field. In my senior year in college, my sister met and married an endodontist, and I spent a summer working for him. I knew I wanted to be doing surgery. Medicine in Canada socializes, dentistry is not. So I thought, okay, well, what's the difference if I'm doing surgery on knees or elbows or gums? Except with the gums, you can make a lot more money. So that's the path that I went through my typical US-based education. I became a periodontist. I knew maybe the first week of my periodontal program that I hated it. It was not at all what I thought it was going to be. As you know, the periodontal patients are difficult. They typically end up in a periodontal office because of their lack of home care. So it's not just that you're trying to do the best treatment for them surgically, you're trying to change habits as well, which I found was significantly more challenging to do. I realized along the way that I'm the type of person that likes to feel if I do the same things over and over, I'm going to tend to get the same results over and over. That is not the case in perio, as you well know. It's very much patient-driven. So I became frustrated along the way. And then about 2-3 years into my practice, I was approached by a dentist. I was, like a lot of specialists, I had multiple locations. And one of my satellite offices, I shared with an orthodontist. And he came to me 2 or 3 years into my practice and said, hey, Lorne, I'm thinking about computerizing my practice. Because this is back in the mid-90s. This is a lot of people still were not computerized. You know, digital x-rays, digital cameras were brand new. So a lot of people did not have the current technology that we have now in their treatment rooms. but he thought it was time. But this was a guy who literally couldn't turn a computer on by himself. And he said, I got a quote and, can you take a look at this and let me know? And what I saw was just ridiculous. It was a $50,000 quote for 2 computers and software. And I just thought, it's really too bad that dentists don't have someone that they can turn to who not only understands the technology, but understands things from a dentist standpoint. And all of a sudden, the light went off. And I said, wait a second. Well, I can do that. And I started offering it as a favor to referring offices. And I was starting to get calls from non-referring offices and people that I didn't really know. And I was busy. I mean, I was now doing a lot of this stuff in between weekends and patients and evenings. And I thought, well, this is crazy. And then fast forward to about the year 2000, I was at the American Academy of Periodontology, had a technology day in Philadelphia. And there were 2 speakers there, Barry Friedberg and Claudio Lovato. I had met both of them very briefly before, just knew them casually. And there's about 400 periodontists there. And halfway through the morning session, someone asks a somewhat difficult technical question. And I think it was Barry that stopped and says, I don't know the answer to that, but there's someone here who I think might. Do you all know Lorne Lavine? And they had me stand up in front of 400 periodontists. Fortunately, I did know the answer to the question. So within an hour, I must have had 200 or 300 business cards that were plunked in my lap. The people, because they were all there for the same thing. They wanted to understand technology and make the right decisions. This was a little bit before the Shines and Pattersons and Kirstens of the world that were dominating the market. And people were looking for a way to get all these different things, these individual small companies' products to work together, which I had a knack to do. So around the same time, I knew I had to make a choice because it was just getting so busy. And around the same time, I had heard that California was passing licensure by credential. They had a shortage of dentists out in the desert and Indian reservations. And they, I think it was kind of silly. They thought, well, let's open it up for any dentist who's in good standing in another state to come into California. We're sure they're all going to flock to the desert rather than LA, San Diego, San Francisco, which is exactly what happened. So there was a small window there where I could move to California. And my plan was I'm going to practice 3 or 4 days a week. I'll do my IT consulting, whatever it was at that time, a day a week. Maybe in 5-10 years, I can shift the ratio. It didn't work out that way because they forgot to mention that there were 15,000 people on the waiting list. So I gave up my practice in Vermont, moved to LA thinking I'm going to be able to start practicing right away, and found out, oh, nope, sorry, you're number 15,000. It's going to take about a year or so, which at the time was unbelievably nerve-wracking because I had no income. In retrospect, it was the best possible thing that could have happened because within, I'd say, 2 to 3 weeks of me moving to LA, Howard Ferran reached out to me. He had just started the Dentaltown website. He was looking for someone to moderate all the technology forums. And then Joe Blaze, who was the editor of Dental Economics, he reached out. They were looking for a technology editor for the magazine. So within a month, my name was getting out all across North America, all across the world. And it just took off. And by the time I could get my license a year later, I was like, you know what? I hated perio the first time around. Why do I want to do it a second time? So I was really fortunate that it just took off. And that's really what we do. And you and I were talking before we started recording that the beauty about IT when it comes to dental technology is that every 5-6 years, there seems to be a paradigm shift. Initially up through about 2008, 2009, most of what we did was computers and monitors and mounts and networking and then digital x-rays and cameras and all that type of stuff. When HIPAA became HIPAA, which was really 2009, I was surprised that very few dental IT companies were focusing on that. So we really focused on that for a few years. It didn't seem to move the needle with a lot of our clients. Most of them rightfully said, what are the odds that I'm going to be audited? So we didn't find that it was really moving the needle. Ransomware over the last 7-8 years has completely changed the equation. The easiest conversation that I have with a potential client is when they call me up and say, hey, we were hit with ransomware. We don't want to go through this again. What can I do? And at that point, it takes off. So yeah, it's, I was thinking about the Grateful Dead the other day because Mr. Weir just passed away. And I was thinking, that song, what a long, strange trip it's been. That's really been kind of where I've been at, is what a long, strange trip it's been.
So with ransomware, is there a benefit for having your data backed up on the cloud, or does that make you more susceptible? Or is there a benefit of having it still, on tapes that you take home every day?
Yeah.
Uh,
So it depends on how you're doing the backup. So we always recommend a two-pronged approach to backup. A local backup, typically we call that an image. We're not going to back up just the data. We want to back up the entire server, programs, network settings, file, like everything is basically an exact duplicate of the server. So the way that the process would work is that if the server goes down for whatever reason, we fire up that copy of the server, is basically a virtual copy of the server on another device. And within minutes, you're back up and running. If it's designed properly, all of the backups that we do are encrypted. So if it's designed properly, it should be difficult for ransomware to attack it. We haven't seen many, if any, for our clients that have been hit with a ransomware virus that on their backup. We certainly had people over the years that were hit with the virus, but on their backup, it's pretty rare. That being the case, nothing's 100%. So we always want to make sure that we have a secondary backup. That's where the cloud backup comes in. And there's lots of ways you can configure the backup, but if you do what's called an incremental backup, which basically means you're only copying the files that are new or changed. And it's comparing the one that's in the cloud to the local one as well. If the local copy gets hit with a ransomware virus, which like I said is somewhat rare, but it still can happen. But if that were the case, then it shouldn't allow you to then have the cloud backup running as well. What you don't want to have is to have those ransomware infected files copied to the cloud as well. That would be definitely a no-no. If it's, like I said, if it's done properly, then having a cloud backup that only will back up changed files that aren't affected by the ransomware virus, then you should be okay. 99% of the data restores that we've ever had to do are from the local, because it's just that the ransomware, for the most part, just can't get to those encrypted files. There have been some instances, Joplin, Missouri, a number of years ago, where there were tornadoes and hurricanes in New Jersey, where there's times where we've had to go to a cloud backup, but it's rare that we would have to do that. And like I said, the criminals are always one step ahead of us. So even though we feel like we've got good systems in place to protect practices, who knows what's going to happen down the road.
I was going to ask you about the ransomware as a final question. Are dentists an easy target? Is that why, or is it just everybody's a target?
Yeah, it's not so much that they're easy targets, which unfortunately most are. Most dentists don't have the education or the training or the expertise themselves to deal with ransomware. And a lot of dentists, I mean, listen, the reality is that in order to properly have good protection in place and do all the things that you should be doing from an IT standpoint, most practices really, and I apologize if this comes across as self-serving, but they really could benefit from having an IT professional that helps them with all of this. So most of them don't make that a type of investment that they really should be making for that. Because of that, we're finding that people are at more risk. It's more a matter of what they have. That a medical or a dental record, for the most part, is a gold mine for ransomware criminals because it has everything. It has patients' names, date of birth, social security numbers, usually credit card information, everything that they could want to steal someone's identity is in there. So it's not so much that dentists are a huge target. It's just healthcare records are so valuable on the black market that's where a lot of them are going to be pushing towards.
Okay, so it is the diamond mine then, as opposed to just the nickel mine. Yeah, I've got you. Now, you also mentioned there that every dental practice should engage an IT expert to help them with this. But in our conversation earlier, you mentioned that you were seeing dentists being ripped off in terms of quotes for simple setups.
Yeah.
And I think that as a dentist, sometimes dentists are an easy target because they work so intensely in a small area all day long that sometimes they don't have the time to check out what is really happening in the real estate market, check out what is really happening on the stock market, and they take advice from people promising exorbitant results for large fees, and then it all goes pear-shaped. And I fell into that with a real estate. I still have nightmares over how scripted the real estate showing was for this terrible investment I had. I made, but I stuck it out long enough to get the profit. But it's the same in dentistry. It often used to be said that dentists have across their forehead something that they can't read because it's in invisible ink, but everybody else can read it. And it's kind of like, screw me, I'm a dentist.
Yeah.
And they just go blindly from advisor to advisor. Is that still happening in the tech
To a certain
world?
degree, I think we have a lot of resources out there as dentists to figure out what's considered standard of care and what's kind of normal. Websites like Dental Town and Facebook groups and other people out there. It's not that difficult to sort of get a feel for what should something like this cost. Obviously, there's a range. There's a difference between a mom and pop shop IT house where it's one person and, they don't have any dental clients versus someone that's all they do is healthcare and they've got years or decades of experience. There's going to be a range. You should be able to figure out, like, for example, most of our clients for backup are spending somewhere around, I don't know, $100 to $125 a month, give or take US dollars a month. That's pretty typical for fully managed backup, a cloud backup, local. We monitor it every single day. We don't charge to restore the data. That seems to be the going rate. So if someone's quoting you $1,000 a month, you know that that's probably not within the realm of normal. Now, there's also the problem with backup, of course, is that a lot of times the fee is going to be based on how much data you have, just because when we use a cloud storage, we're charged by the number of terabytes. So there's a difference between an office that has 100 gigabytes of data, they're not doing any imaging, versus an office that has multiple terabytes because they've got cone beam and they've got all these 3D images that have to be saved. So, but the best advice I could give to people is shop around. There's plenty of people like me that do this. You can go into Dental Town, you can go into dental Facebook groups and just say, hey, what are you guys paying for backup? And there's always cheap. I mean, if you want to do it yourself, you can find Carbonite and Mozy and the AWS, and you can always find something that's going to be really, really cheap. And I always tell people, listen, you're going to be really proud of yourself for all the money that you saved until the day that it goes down and you don't know exactly what to do. And then at that point, it's, do you have the support? Because it's one thing to be able to back up your data, and most people can do a pretty decent job. It doesn't really make that much of a difference if you do local or cloud or external hard drives or DVDs or whatever. The backup's probably fine. The question that I think a lot of offices really should be asking is, if my server goes down, how quickly before I'm up and running again? And if that is measured in anything other than minutes, and for most offices it's hours or days, then it's too long. So that's really the focus should be, do I have a system in place to test this? And really what we tell people is, if you're not sure how long it's going to take you to restore your backup, there's an easy way to find out. Turn off your server and start the clock. And how long does it take you to get up and running? And it's something we highly recommend for offices to do, because even if they're not doing it on their own, if they have an IT company that they're working with, see if the IT company is prepared and can come in place. Because when you're down as a dental, especially in this day and age, you're down. I mean, you can't pull up your schedule. You can't take digital x-rays. You can't take camera images. You can't do anything. You're really dead in the water. So you really want to be able to be up and running within minutes. Our typical practice, anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes from the time they call us up to the time they're up and running, assuming they have the backup that we've recommended for them.
Yeah, it's something that I've experienced a couple of times, just a local issue with my server, and not so bad that we used to print off paper appointment schedules every day, because we were able to put them where we could see them
Yeah.
while we were working, whereas a computer screen is kind of like break your neck because it's over there or up there or whatever. But I have heard of offices, over the weekend they turn up and they go, no computers, and they're just sitting there waiting. Guess who the next patient's going to be? They have no idea, and that can be very disrupting. As you mentioned, IT is changing, and it has these every 5 or 7 years, a new area. What's the latest in terms of, and I think I know what you're going to say, but
Yeah.
I'd like a bit more detail than just 2 letters. But what's the latest area that is really sparking interest amongst you, as well as dentists and the dental profession, in terms of what they can deliver for the offices and what the offices can then deliver for their patients?
Well, you guessed correctly. It is AI. So I see two main areas where we're seeing the most interest in AI. Number one, which has actually been around a lot longer than people know, is clinically. Caries diagnosis, things like that. You and I were talking earlier, there's programs like Logicon caries detectors, which has been around since the 1990s. So it's there, it just hasn't taken off. Now you've got companies like Pearl and other ones that do something similar. So that's going to continue to develop. Obviously, from an administrative standpoint as well. It used to be when the first AI receptionist came out, it was very obvious that you were talking to AI. The lag was too long. They didn't understand all the other commands. It is night and day difference in just a couple of years how well and how sophisticated that is. And I think for a lot of dentists, at the end of the day, the thing that they really want from AI from a non-clinical standpoint is to have their chairs full. It's as simple as that. And if there is a system like AI that can get people in the door, especially after hours, that's what we found, because a lot of times people are thinking about, oh, I need to go in and see a practice, and it's 11 o'clock at night and you're waiting, they go onto the website. Wouldn't it be great if you can capture that information from them right then and get them scheduled? Such a fantastic tool. I think where I see IT companies and where I've been exploring and it's a process because there's so many of the things that we do for offices. But I think a lot of dentists really just need guidance on what's out there and what are the options and what are the pros and cons of the different systems. As an IT professional, I can't keep up with everything. There's just no way because it's not just AI. I mean, I'm always, like you said, I'm always working on backup. I'm always looking at the latest in encryption and email and patch management and ransomware protection and firewalls. And, it's constantly changing. So it's really critical that we be able to give dental practices some guidance on here's the things that, you should be looking at. I don't necessarily have to be able to say to them, here's the thing that you need to get, but more just what's available and how, what's out there. Cause a lot of people just don't know what's even within the realm of possibilities.
Yeah. What's the best way for somebody who, a dentist in practice to get a good handle of what's available? Is it visit
Probably Google. Google
Oh, really? Google?
Google,
Not
or you
visit
can
one
use
of the
AI. You
treaty?
can use AI to learn about AI. Use ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the ones that are out there. And just, it's all about having the proper prompts. If you prompt ChatGPT, I'm a dentist. I want to increase my efficiency. I want to increase my clinical skills, all this stuff. What programs are out there? They'll do all the work for you. You'd be surprised at how much stuff that ChatGPT can. I use ChatGPT almost every day. Not necessarily. I mean, I tried initially, like I write articles every month for dental journals. I thought, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could, use ChatGPT for that? And they came out so not good. So it didn't have my voice as part of it. And it just, you could just tell this was not natural. So after like one time, it's like, okay, no more. I can't use it for that. But you can certainly use it for research. And it's just incredible what it can do. So yeah, I think between Google and ChatGPT, going on to places like Dental Town or Facebook groups or X or whatever, there's all kinds of resources out there. The thing that we worry about, and that's why I think that, as I said, as an IT provider, that we're looking at being more of a consultant in that area is I'm trying to think what is the term, paralysis by analysis. I think is the right term. That there's just so much out there, and we see that a lot in IT because people say, hey, I'm thinking about updating my computers, but I know if I just wait a month or two, they're going to have a new processor coming out or faster RAM or whatever. And I always tell them, listen, don't play that game, especially now. I don't know if you're aware of what's going on in IT, but because of AI, there is a massive shortage of RAM memory modules out there. And most of them have doubled or tripled in price over just the last couple of months. Not to mention the video cards, NVIDIA video cards, the top of the line video cards are now $2,500 to $3,000, which is double the price of what a really decent computer would. Like a good gaming computer used to
Mm.
be $1,400, $1,500. One for a dental office would be around $1,000 US. Just it's crazy the demands that AI puts on infrastructure and manufacturing, and I don't see this going. I don't see the prices going down until 2028 at the earliest. So it's not going to be cheap to buy a computer.
My goodness. There's a tip for our listeners and viewers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get it now. It's gonna
Get
get
it now.
worse before it gets better, there's no doubt. Now, some of the major vendors like Dell and HP, they've already had so much stuff in stock, but some of the smaller niche ones, gaming type systems or whatever, you're absolutely going to be paying a premium. I build my own computers, and I just built one using the newer type of memory. I budgeted around 1,000 for it, and it ended up costing me 1,800 for parts that if I had gotten them 2 months previously, I would have saved myself almost half.
Wow. Wow. All right. There's a tip straight away.
Yeah.
So waiting for the trade show to come to your part of the world is not a good idea then.
No, no. When you know you need it, get it, because you have no idea where it's going to be. It's so volatile right now. So we just don't know where the price is going. But like I said, I'm pretty confident that they're going to continue to rise for at least a couple of years.
So we've spoken about the clinical with the diagnostics. What about the administrative side of a dental office? And we also mentioned too the reception is changing, and phrase that is often used that if you think it's bad today, just wait a couple of weeks because it'll be better, and it never goes back to how bad it was. It's always
Yeah.
improving.
I've called, like, sometimes some dental offices that we'll see on Dental Town or Facebook, they'll say, "Hey, we just implemented this AI receptionist. Can people call us up, please, and just let us know what you think?" Some of them, it's really hard to tell that you're talking to
Mm.
AI. Some of them are so advanced, and the pauses are no longer there, and their voice, the inflections are much more natural. It's really hard to tell. So we're seeing it with reception. I think another area where a lot of offices are seeing some benefit, and I'm using it for my own business, we just started rolling it out over the last week or so, and it's not fully implemented, would be scheduling through the website, like a chat agent, an AI chat bot on your website. That someone who's on the website can answer a few questions, and they can get them into the books directly through that. So those are two main areas where I see AI from an administrative standpoint. Obviously, insurance. I mean, there's dental offices that have been using offshore, offsite people for decades. Yeah, because you can find people in the Philippines or other areas that work for a fraction of what it would be in Australia or the U.S. that have already been doing that. It's not a huge leap to be able to say we can do this through AI, especially something like insurance, sending to insurance companies, predeterminations, all that stuff. I mean, you don't really need to be paying a high income office manager who's sitting in your practice to do that. Now, I'm not saying people should get rid of the office manager. You still need them, but the support personnel can absolutely be either offshore or AI as well. It's just like you said, if you're not crazy about where things are at, just wait a week or two and there'll be something new. And it's very challenging for me as an IT professional. I get questions every day. People ask me about specific products, and there's stuff that's coming out constantly that I've never heard of before that I feel like, hey, I should know about this. And, then I'll call them up and maybe we do a webinar together, but it's just a matter of really trying to stay on top of the latest and greatest. And it's a constant battle for me.
Somebody told me that in pharmacy, every pill is a different shape or size. Every pill is different. And
Really?
so the mechanical sorting of pills compared to a human sorting the pills, the error rate is something like less than 1% for the
Yeah, that makes
machine,
sense. I
but
didn't realize that
about
because some of the I've seen pills
10%
that
for
are
the
very similar in look and feel, but I guess they all have different weights, I guess, if you're that exact. So yeah.
but the machine's 10 times better than the person. And I think it's the same with you hear a machine make a mistake in an AI reception sort of place, and you say, "Oh, your machine's made a mistake," but you can fix that, and it'll never make that mistake again. But you train
Yeah.
somebody, and even if they do get better, sometimes they leave your office. So,
I'd like to
that's
think that dentists are not gonna be replaced anytime soon, but you never know. I mean, with robots out there and, who knows what's gonna happen, down the road, but, for now, I think, the dental profession is still relatively safe. There's people that we can replace or that we can find alternatives for it to take away some of the mundane tasks that are typically done in a dental practice. Will I live long enough to see a time where there's no longer a human being chairside? I don't know. That would be really curious.
well, I don't know about that, but if you think in medical terms that surgeons are now using computers to guide um, artery replacements and stents for
Yeah,
heart by going in through the groin, and that's all surgically. Without computer, you can't find the path. And so, if that's a big part of the body, surely they should be able to work in a small part of the body with a
exactly. Yeah.
computer-guided
Yep.
program. It's just a matter of whether you think that that's worthwhile, just like whether you think that we should have solved the answer to the common cold by now.
You would
And
think
why
so.
haven't we?
Treating rhinovirus was, there's been around for 100 plus years. We should have a better handle on it, but we don't. So who knows?
Well, who knows on that?
Yep,
HIV basically doesn't kill people anymore. That was meant to be the end of
that's
the
true.
human
Yep,
race
that's 40
45
years.
years
Yeah,
ago. Anyway, now we're getting philosophical, and
yeah,
that's the
yeah. I'm
last
not.
thing that a tech ed wants to do. We want to talk about what's real. So I think the fact that you've mentioned that change is imminent, and this is something that right across the computerized world and across the world in general, that change happens. The amount of change happens in shorter amounts of time. The increase in change takes less time, and so phrases like, was it Thomas Watson who said that in life he thought that maybe there would only be a need for maybe 5 computers. He was the
Oh,
head of
yeah,
IBM. Who got those 5?
yeah. 5 per household, maybe.
Yeah. So it's just crazy. But in terms of updating, and I guess
Yeah,
you mentioned that as soon as you buy it and take it home, it's already been
pretty much.
superseded.
Yeah.
And there are people we know who always have to have the latest and greatest iPhone every time one comes out. But a good iPhone really can last you 3 or 4 years, even if you might have to update the screen and update the battery. Is that the same in technology? And while you were talking before, I had a pre-2000 intraoral camera. My goodness,
Oh, yeah.
the hardware on that.
Those are actually great cameras, though. Those fiber optic cameras, they were fantastic. Of course, now, those were here, at least here in the States, there were $10,000, $15,000 camera systems, Insight, I can't remember the name of the company that had them. Of course, now you can get a somewhat decent USB camera for under $100 US. The technology is definitely changing, but we still find there's a lot of need to go back to basics. That yes, technology is constantly changing. I love my clients who said I always want the latest and greatest because I know I'm having a conversation with them every 6 to 12 months about updating their hardware and software. But for the way that I run my business, I think it's really important that people have what they need to have in place. For example, we find that most dental practices haven't done a proper risk assessment. Here in the States, there's a HIPAA requirement that you have to do a formal risk assessment on a regular basis. Is considered, yeah, I think yearly is considered the gold standard. In my mind, even if there wasn't a law that says you have to do it, just common sense says as a dentist, you can't really treatment plan until you've diagnosed first. So that's the same approach that we take with this is that we have to do a comprehensive evaluation. Part of the challenge is, at least when it comes to HIPAA, is that if you actually look up at the HIPAA regulations when it comes to doing a risk assessment, it's literally one sentence. It just says you have to do it. They don't give you any guidance. And there are companies out there that say, hey, go online and take our 10-minute questionnaire and you're done. It's nowhere near adequate. So much of that risk assessment is looking at the IT systems, the user accounts, the password policies, the encryption, the backup, which we talked about, the networking, all these different things, Active Directory, which is part of how a server operating system is set. I mean, there's so much that goes into that unless you have that tech background, you have no clue how to actually do that. So we think it's really critical that offices on a regular basis do a real evaluation. A 10-minute online, the ones that we do for our clients take about 7 or 8 hours. We don't need them for more than 5 minutes just to get us onto the computers remotely. But after that, we want to run all kinds of tests and have all kinds of reports. And if it's done properly, it should generate their version of a treatment plan called the HIPAA management plan, which is the step by step. Here's the things that you need to be doing. And as I said, we recommend that for clients, even if they're not. I mean, in Canada has PIPEDA, which is very similar to HIPAA. But we have clients in Australia and the UK, and not a ton, but enough. And every country has its own specific rules when it comes to privacy and security laws. The concept is very much similar across the board, which is that patients are entrusting us with their private personal information. We, as healthcare providers, really have an obligation to do everything within our power to protect and secure that data. That's kind of the whole premise, I think, of all HIPAA, PIPEDA. Each country's, like I said, got their own rules and regulations. But even without those laws in place, I think that the ethical obligation is still there for dental practices to protect and secure that information. So when we do this process with our clients, yes, we're always looking at the latest and greatest. We're always looking at new, how to build a better mousetrap and new software systems. But at the end of the day, most of our clients still have computers. They still have a network that's designed properly. They still have a backup, a local and a cloud backup. We still have a firewall. We still have antivirus and anti-ransomware software. We still have patching that we do, keep the software current and up to date. We still train the staff, encryption, encrypted email. These are kind of the bread and butter of the IT systems of a dental practice, and they still need all that stuff. So we do have some offices, they'll call us up and, hey, I want take, what's your thought about this great new cone beam system, these AI systems, and we're happy to give our opinions. But at the end of the day, you still need the infrastructure in place to run those. And if you don't have that, you're going to be dead in the water. You're just going to be frustrated because nothing's working properly, or it's slow, or it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And then you call us up and you say, hey, and you suggested this fantastic system for me. How come it doesn't work on my 10-year-old Windows 7 machines? And we have to explain that, no, that's not exactly how the whole process is
What
supposed
wasn't
to
meant to
go.
be like, just tell them to get their floppy disks out and reboot it.
I still have PTSD about when I was I started my practice in 91, 92, and the backup was on 3.5-inch floppies. And I think there was like 40 or 50 disks, and each one had about 1.2 megabytes of data. So you put the first one in and wait about a minute or two. Then you put the next one in. My office manager, it would take her anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half to run the backup. So we had to start it early because she wasn't a big fan of staying for 90 minutes after we were done to run the backup. And then, of course, it was like a miracle when CDs came out and DVDs and then external hard drives. And like I said, of course, now it's all about local backups and cloud and some combination of the two.
Yeah, interesting that how times have changed. One of the areas that really is changing clinically for dentists is the use of digital scanners now instead of impression
Yeah.
materials. And, I retired myself clinically because of arthritis in my hands in 2017. So I never worked in an office. I didn't have it in my office when I left that at 2014. And 2000, for the next 3 years, I worked with a friend and he didn't have it. But now everybody seems to be doing scans rather than impressions.
Yeah.
What's the latest in scans? Are they really that good that now, I've been told that you can do full dentures in 2 visits, one for the scan
Yep.
and the second to give them the dentures. Like,
Yep.
where's the
That's
old
pretty
duck
much
fights and
that's standard of care now. Yeah, they've come a long way. I remember, when the first iTero system came out, and just, it was a nice toy, I think, for the most part. It didn't have all the bells and whistles, and it really didn't have the accuracy we want. But now we're just seeing incredible accuracy for full arch restoration, single town, for implant planning, obviously. Just incredible. And especially now the integration that you'll have, scanners and cone beam that to the millimeter where that implant should be placed and the angle, and you can make surgical guides. And it's so regimented now. It removes a lot of the areas where people were running into problems. You're trying to eyeball it. That just isn't the standard of care anymore. So yeah, I think it's a great time to be a dentist. Of course, my son's 19, and I'm saying don't go into dentistry. I think it's a very tough and challenging field. Basically, I told him to go into any field but dentistry. But it's really exciting, just the technology and how these different technologies are integrating with each other. As I said, the problem that we're seeing is that it's still somewhat closed systems. So as a Shine customer, they want you using DTX or Dexis. They want you using Dentrix. They want you using their systems, their cone beam systems. Same with Patterson, same with CareStream. And most of the offices that we work with, dentists, they tend to be somewhat independent, free thinkers, and they want to have choice. They want to say, hey, I want to be able to pick and choose my 2D sensors and my 3D imaging and my digital pen and my intraoral scanner and have them all working together. But it's not always that easy because the dental supply companies are really trying to corner the market with their specific client base. That's what I'm hoping, is that, the open source, open-ended software continues to flourish like we're seeing out there, because I worry that that's what's going to happen, is it's all going to become very um, very closed systems that you can't mix and match the different products that you want. That's not really helping anybody in the long run.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too, just with people who tend to be locked into their favorite or their only dental practice management software, despite the fact that other practice management softwares provide better options and choices and reports. But they just, it's that those three terrible words that strike fear in every dentist's brain: steep learning curve. You know,
Yeah.
you say steep learning curve to a dentist, he's out of there. It's like, oh, not worth it.
Yeah, and that's the biggest challenge is that we do this almost every day, working with offices that have changed their practice management software. Even when it's not a steep learning curve, there's always a learning curve. And, for most practices, it's the better part of 6 to 8 weeks before they really start to get comfortable with the new software. And that's even when you consider the fact that honestly, in our experience, the typical practice uses maybe 10 to 15% of what their software can do. A lot of practices will call me up and say, hey, I was thinking about doing online patient forms. I saw this third party program. What do you think about it? And I said, well, you're using Open Dental. Didn't you know that they have a thing for online forms? And he goes, no, I didn't know that. And yeah, it's like, yeah, it's been there for a decade. You don't have to go to third party programs. It's part of what you have. So we do find that where we have the worst trouble is data conversions because a data conversion is never going to be 100%. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not so great. We go by the concept garbage in, garbage out. So if the data isn't clean in your current practice management software, it's going to be just as messed up, if not worse, when you do the conversion. Most of the better practice management software companies will do a free conversion for you. So you'll know going in what converted, what didn't. And we always tell people, listen, if you can get patient demographics, 30, 60, 90-day balances, treatment plans, be happy. At that point, anything else, if you can get secondary treatment plans, if you can get charting, fantastic. The most common scenario that we see is that the office will keep at least one or two computers running the old practice management software for a year or two to be able to draw from that because it just didn't convert properly. It was just too much of a mess to try to even think about converting it. So, yeah.
So I sometimes come across dentists who migrate to a new software, practice management software, and then they go back to their old one. Is
Yeah.
that more a reflection on their data as opposed to the
I think it's
software?
honestly what we've seen is it's not having a commitment to proper training. That dentists will say, I don't want my office to be down for too long, so we're gonna shut down for 2 hours and we'll get trained on the new software and anything else we can just come up with as a problem. And it doesn't work like that. You have to basically dedicate at least a day, if not 2 days, initially for proper training. And then we've always recommended on a regular basis, every 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, do another hour or 2 hours, whatever, do a lunch and learn that you can find out more because those software programs aren't static. They're coming up with updates constantly as well. And so you may not know that, oh, yeah, I didn't know my software can do this. And oh, yeah, we just added that a few weeks ago. So, but in my experience, it's because they didn't invest in that training. They get frustrated, their staff gets frustrated. A lot of times, unfortunately, I think a lot of dental practices, we listen, as dentists, we depend completely on our staff. And I'm not trying to minimize their input. At the end of the day, though, the final decision should really be to the dentist to decide what's best for the practice. And we find that a lot of dentists, they'll get pushback from their staff. Oh, we don't want to do this new program and it's not like the old one. And yeah, who cares that it's more efficient and they can do much better reporting and the support's better and the cost is better. They know what they know and you're going to get that pushback. And I think sometimes dentists just have to kind of toe the line and say, no, sorry, we're fully invested in this. And, you're along for the ride, whether you like it or not. So tighten your belts and let's get it done here. So, and this is not, again, I'm not knocking office managers and personnel. We depend on them intimately to run our practices. But, at the end of the day, it's your choice as far as what's going to be best for your practice in the long. You shouldn't be changing practice management software every 2 or 3 years either. I mean, you really should do the proper due diligence to figure out what's the best programs out there, what's going to meet my needs both now and sometimes you have to sort of extrapolate to the future. Well, me, I'm going to have an associate. Can my software handle two different sources of revenue coming in and split it up properly? You have to sort of think ahead. Well, maybe I'm going to be adding a cone beam. Maybe I'm going to be adding more treatment rooms. Can the software handle that increased load? And oftentimes you don't know where things are going to be in 5, 10 years. You have to sort of guesstimate, make a best guess that you can. It is a challenge, I think, for a lot of practices to be able to make decisions that they know are going to be the right decisions that are going to last a long time.
So 3 really good points come out of that answer there, Lorne. The first one, or the last one that you mentioned, is, that make a long-term commitment to the software, that so that you don't have to keep changing all the time.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. The second one is try to avoid the inmates running the prison. And that I see a lot of dental offices where that's happening. People who have no skin in the game, their name's not on the front door,
Yeah.
they're making decisions, and the doctor's allowing them to determine their resultant income and performance of their practice. The first one, which is right at the start of your answer, about committing to the training and getting the right amount of time and training, kind of reminded me about what you're talking about with periodontal patients and the fact that I've been to the periodontist. Why aren't my gums better? It's the same thing. You've got a whole new resume that you've got to follow, and it's up to you to do what the periodontist says. And it's the same when you're updating your computer software. You've got to take the recommendation. Otherwise, it doesn't happen overnight. And so that's really, really important as well. You make the commitment, learn the processes, do the homework, make sure everybody's up to speed so that you're not just treating your Rolls Royce as if it's an A to B car, because that's what a lot of people do. Buy an expensive car and then they just treat it like a small car going from A to B all the time when it can do so much more. And so make sure that you get and that's just not for practice management software. That's for any new tech item in your practice. A cone beam, an intraoral scanner. Again, those things are now so much better than just being a camera and a click. The things that they can do. I tell you, I would have loved to have practiced in the age of the intraoral scanner. Nothing more frustrating than taking an Invisalign impression that had a drag on this side, and then the next time it had a drag on that side, and it's like the time, minutes of your life that you just can't get back. Sitting there,
Exactly. Yeah.
because of those. Now you can with the scanners. There's a lot happening. You've covered a lot in this conversation about where the dental profession has gone during your time and your time in tech. And more excitedly, you've raised my attention and my interest in what's happening in the future of dentistry. And I think that's very, very important. Something that you didn't see as having a future with being a periodontist. You have really landed on your feet at right time, right place into an industry that is always growing. And so, again, those words of Thomas Watson were so incorrect in terms of how many computers the world is going to need. But we need them, and we use them, and we enjoy them. And they do, on the most part, make our life easier. Lorne, if somebody wants to get in touch with you after watching or listening to this podcast, what's the best way for them to find you?
Oh, I mean, I'm everywhere. Probably my website, which is digital.dentist.com. If you're on Facebook or X or LinkedIn and you do a search for digital dentist, you'll find me there as well. But on the website, every single page of my website has a contact us form. You can just put in your name and email address. It'll shoot something to my office manager. As I said, we work with clients all over the world. Yes, most of them are in North America, but we do have some in the UK, some in Australia as well. We'll deal with the time difference. It's not a big problem because we have a lot of East Coast clients. As you mentioned, I'm based here on the West Coast. So I've got most of my technicians are here on the West Coast. I have a one on the East Coast as well. So we make it work. We never charge for initial consultations to just figure out what's going on. What a lot of offices elect to have us do, which we highly recommend, we call it a technical audit, where we'll hop into your network. You can watch what we're doing if you're worried about it. We'll take inventory of what's running there, the hardware, the software, the network. We'll look at it from a cybersecurity standpoint, from a privacy and security standpoint, and make recommendations on this is what we found. Here's what we think are the best ways to handle it. Here are your options. Here's what each option will cost. Anyone that's ever worked with me will tell you this is not a high pressure sales call. It's me trying to educate people about what's out there, where they're at risk, what they should expect to happen if they mitigate those risks, and what potentially could happen if they don't. And at the end of the day, it's your practice, it's your money, you decide what's best. Of course, we'd be thrilled to work with anybody, but at the very least, if you go through that process with us, you'll know more than you knew going in as far as where your practice is at and what are the things that you should be focusing on. And we do have some offices that are very tech savvy and they want to handle it on their own. Great. All the power to them. Most do not. They are not productive unless they're chairside. And when the server goes down and there's problems and computers aren't connecting and they can't get stuff printing, you don't want the dentist to be the one that's spending an hour fiddling with all that stuff trying to get to work. You want to have ideally an IT company that you can call up and 5 minutes later they've logged on and resolved the problem for you. So that's the approach that we take as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like going to the dentist or kind of like having a golf lesson. The knowledge that you get from those people is more than the knowledge that you have on your own trying to fix things yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, just I used to subscribe to the view that I enjoyed mowing my lawn until I found out that I could pay somebody hardly anything to mow it a lot quicker than I could,
Yeah.
and do a much better job. So
That's like me. In my career, I used to do, when I first started, it was just me. I was doing everything, running cables and mounting monitors. The first time I hit a metal stud and I was like, what in the world is this? That was the end of my my monitor mounting career. I said, you know what? There's people out there that I can pay that do a better job than I can and let me focus on the things that I really know a lot about. Same
yeah.
concept.
Yeah, same. I did it recently. Renovated my home, and we needed to hang pictures. I got a guy come. He must have hung 60 or 70 pictures in 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
It would have taken me 60 or 70 days, and I
Yeah,
still would have got them
exactly.
wrong, and I might have dropped one. So yeah, he was very good, just perfect. Lorne, thanks so much for your time today. Really enjoyed it. Glad you were able to enlighten me, and I hope that anybody who's watching this gives you a call and gets one of these complimentary diagnostic sessions so that they can find out what they've got and if there are any potential problems and what is around they can easily fix something before it becomes a disaster, because that's every dentist's fear. Is it used to be the compressor wasn't working, but now it's the
Oh
computer's
yeah.
not working. That
Yeah.
really can, it's a broom handle in the spokes of the wheel, isn't it? It just stops you
Yeah.
dead. Lorne Lavine, thank you so much for being a guest on the Ultimate Dental Podcast. Really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you for having me, David. It was a pleasure, and look forward to working with any of your listeners who want some advice on the best path forward.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Lorne.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of our dental community and joining us each week on this incredible journey. If you found value in today's episode and you don't want to miss out on future episodes packed with expert insights and actionable strategies, here's how you can stay connected with us. Firstly, hit that subscribe button. Whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or watching on our website, subscribing ensures you'll never miss an episode. Secondly, share the love. If you know a fellow dentist or colleague who could benefit from the wisdom and knowledge that we share here, please share our podcast with them. Also, please share the podcast on your socials by simply clicking on the social icons wherever you view or listen to this podcast. Together, we can all do our bit to elevate the dental profession. And finally, stay engaged with us. We love hearing from you. Your questions, comments, and feedback fuel our mission to provide the best content for your professional growth, your personal growth, and for your practice growth. Remember, your journey to creating a dental practice and a business life that you love is our mission, and we're excited to be your trusted guide along the way. Thank you for being a part of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. Until next time, keep smiling, keep striving, and keep on tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast.